but enough about that. I want to introduce our next speaker today. Mike, are you with us? Mike, we can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, well, now we can.
Perfect.
Excellent. So first of all, I want to start by thanking Mike for his willingness to jump on a very, very short call. Mike actually was a speaker on our last session, and he came to us and said, hey, I have another idea for a great session. I said, hey, we like kind of waiting a little bit more for repeated, but we had a very last minute cancellation from Christian yesterday. We hope he had a medical issue. We hope he's well enough, and again, we would like to get a little bit from him later when he's okay. But in any case, Mike jumped in, and as I said, he had a cool session that we saw before, and he was nice enough in order to jump in and be with us today. Just to introduce Mike second, he's actually a great guy. I mean, as a person, it's incredibly enjoyable just working with him and interacting with him. He's also been in the IT industry for 15 years or so, if I'm not mistaken, and you've been having all sorts of leadership roles and management on that. And you actually just published a book last year, or this year, actually, earlier this year.
Well, it just met a year. I had my year anniversary, but due to COVID, it doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Yeah, well, yeah, COVID actually just stopped everything.
Yeah, frozen.
But yeah, in any case, we're honored for having you here. Mike, do you want to share your screen in the meantime?
Yeah. All right.
Let's see. Maybe I need to stop mine for a second. I'm going to stop my share, and I can share yours, I think. There you go. Now we start seeing your screen. Excellent. So, Mike, floor is yours. And just a reminder for people, try not to ask questions on the chat, the Zoom chat, if you want, either on the Q&A or even better on the Slack channels. Go ahead.
Yes. And I think this is one of my favorite talks. And I say it's favorite. I've only done it once. But it gets a lot of discussion, and I was so excited. Thanks to PractiTest for letting me do this. I did reach out to Joel and the team and said, look, people back out and people have issues. We have our lives, and especially now things change. So if you have an opening, I'll jump right in and would love to do this talk again, because I had a lot of fun with it earlier this year. And really talking about discussion testers should no longer be having, a very controversial title. And really you'll find as we go through this, it's actually discussions we should be having. It's this presentation today is more about how should we change that discussion. We have the discussion. It's not about not having it. The title is to get attention, of course. That's what we do. But it's really more about what different type of discussion should we have instead of the one that we're going to talk about today. So a little bit about me, and I don't want to add too much more to what Joel already covered, but I have been in IT for a very, very long time. I started out as a developer, really loved development, thought that was going to be what I did for the rest of my life, and it was not. I liked PMO. I really loved managing developers and development teams. But then I fell in love with testing. Testing has been my favorite thing. And I've been doing that officially since 2008, but I started doing that within the organization, within our development team in 2005. Got a lot of experience working in different places with the company that I was at. And I want to share those things with you, and I want to continue to bring that back to the community, because once I got into the speaking and meeting people at conferences and events, I found that, man, we have a great opportunity right here in front of us to meet people, even during the pandemic, to meet a lot of people and learn from each other. And I've learned more from what I've shared and been shared in this community than I ever learned in school or even the workforce. So if you're here, good job, and keep doing that, and keep communicating and working with people. And as Joel mentioned, I've got a book. It's called The Drive-Thru is Not Always Faster. but thanks to the pandemic, most places the drive-through is the only way right now. But things will get back to normal someday, we hope. But it's a fun book, motivational self-help book, 30 chapters. Each chapter is its own little short story, so it's easy to read. Getting a lot of good feedback. So that's my pitch for that. And the last you'll hear about it today. So what we're going to talk about today is that teams, we know that teams do not agree on everything, and the way that certain people see things, and the way that that your group may look at things, or your company as a whole may look at things, may be different. I thought this picture was fitting in the times that we're in, but people don't agree. And when I reached out to the community and I started talking to folks about what are some areas that you wish you didn't have to discuss, things, topics and discussions that you didn't have to have. And I left it open-ended that way because I wanted people to say, here's discussions that I really are tough discussions to have, or I don't like to have. And I got a lot. And this is not intended. I do not like to have slides with a ton of words, but I wanted you to see the content of a lot of the things that came back. And I tried to sort them in groups of, the main question. The first question is, how do we miss it in tests? We hear that a lot. But then looking at grouping things around roles, titles, environments, automation, estimation, testing, planning, and then execution as well. So you'll see these as we go down. You'll see these. So I'm not going to walk through these, and you're not required. There won't be a test at the end for this. But I think the thing that I wanted you to see is this is feedback from the community. The moment I posted it out there, it was my most on LinkedIn. I got like 18 or 20,000 views of that, and a lot of discussion from a lot of people in the community. And I think it was a testament to what we have to deal with in the testing profession and the work that we do. We have to have a lot of discussions that are difficult at times, and it may be things that we don't want to have. But what I want to share with you today is, how could you change that discussion? And it's really more about changing the discussion than it is not having the discussion. So, and that's why I think the post that I put out there on social media got a lot of attention, because a lot of people were saying, I think we should talk about it. And I agree. So you'll see as we go along. The big thing for each of you is this: we have a voice, and we have a critical voice in the alignment of the teams. You hear people talking through the years about testers need a seat at the table. We definitely need a seat at the table. We definitely need to realize that we do have a voice, and that our opinion within the project is beyond just what we do as testers and what we plan to do as testers. In other words, your role is not just to take the requirements and go validate that everything is good and that we check the boxes and we proceed. Testing has a bigger responsibility, and our voice can start at the very beginning of the project, and really to be part of that design. Is it testable? Are these requirements testable? Is the product really what the stakeholders want? And those are the kind of things that we need to be involved in at the early stage to help the whole team decide how we're going to move forward with the project. And the big thing for us is that we've got to drive that alignment. While you may not be the one driving the bus, you may not be the one at the front of the pack leading the whole effort. I think you need to feel empowered, that you do have a lot of responsibility in the testing role, and you're not the end. You're not the end of the assembly line. You're not the end of that process. You need to be involved throughout. And we have to, many times, we have a big responsibility and a big opportunity as well to take on those things and to help the whole team, from the management, product owners, scrum masters, developers, everybody on the team. We have that opportunity to really help the whole team be aligned, and don't feel like that you have to sit back and let the product manager, or product owner, or the project manager, the director, or the team, someone that has a title lead that. You have that opportunity to to drive that alignment within your role. But the big thing that I'll say to you is this: don't take it personal. It Take your stand and express your opinion. Have a difference of opinion if you wish, but it doesn't have to be offensive. It doesn't have to. It's okay to disagree, and it's okay to have differences of opinions. But your overall outcome needs to be that you're working toward a better outcome for the client, for the stakeholders, for the product, the person that's going to use the product that you're delivering. And remember that as you go through, people are not always going to agree with what you're saying. And as we go through this talk today, I think you're going to find that we do have many opportunities to take the high road and to do the right thing and to help our teams improve. So what discussions should we not be having? And I think that was it's a very open-ended topic. As I showed you on the first slide, is there's a lot of feedback from people in the community. We all deal with different types of situations and discussions that we feel that we just wish it wasn't going that direction. And how do we change it? And so let's start with the one that I feel was the most popular, and that is, how did we miss this in testing? And we've heard it. You've all heard it. If you've been in testing longer than a day, you've heard it. And when you hear this, you're inclined to be defensive, so you don't, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be defensive when that comes up. What I say to my teams that I've worked with when we get that question, obviously it's like, you feel like someone's saying to you, how did you miss this? How did you let this happen? And I don't feel that it's always that intent, but that's the way it comes across. But what your response should be is, yeah, I got this. Let's talk about the root cause. Let's look at where we missed it along the way. How did we miss it in the planning? How did we miss it in the design, in the requirements, or the development? What really was our root cause? And do an RCA, a root cause analysis on it. And you take the lead in driving, finding out what did go wrong. It could be that we missed it in testing. Maybe everybody did their job. Maybe the requirements were perfect. The client and the stakeholder knew what they wanted. And at the very end, we missed a very important a test that would have found something before production. But that's not the issue here. Your role when someone's asking, how do we miss this in testing, is, you're darn right. How did we miss this overall? Let's go and let's figure out how to resolve this. And you be the driver for taking those lessons learned and going forward. When we think about roles, nobody wants this. Is one of my favorite movies, The Office Space. What is it you would say what is it you would say you do here? You don't want people asking about your role and what you do. And we have that happen a lot. But let's talk about the roles and what roles you play, and versus what roles the organization may expect you to be playing on your team. So when we look at some of the things that we hear a lot of discussions around QA is an incorrect title, and a lot of discussions. If you want to have fun, get on social media and listen to people talk about, my title is tester, my title is QA, my title is QE. And we get wrapped around that axle around what is my title and why do titles matter. Around the discussion of automated versus manual tester, you hear a lot of discussions around that, which I have a lot of inputs on that as well, which I kind of understand why those discussions happen. Not every QA wants to be a developer. That was one of the feedback from folks that gave their inputs on things they heard. And then we can have others help when the QAs are the bottleneck. We can give you some help and we can get things going to keep things moving. There's always somebody there willing to pitch in and help. And then the other was, when development need increases, we need more QA. So responses that I would say that we need to think about in that situation is QA, and this is really not mine. Smith & Messer gave me this a long time ago. But QA should be quality assistance, not quality assurance. And I think that really defines, if you have a QA in your title, I'm a QA director, I feel that QA is quality assistance, not quality assurance. And that way you see quality is everybody's responsibility and delivering for the whole team. Automation does support testing, and I believe that we're in a stage now where it's needed, in each of our organizations, and automation is needed more and more every day. But we also understand that when you think about manual, when someone says a manual tester, you're talking about someone who's thinking with their brain, not with a system or an automated script. And sometimes I believe my personality there, or my personal belief there, is that if you have someone testing that is a human, then they think about the way it makes them feel. Computers don't always look at a screen and say, well, that's a blue screen, it makes me feel different, or it's a red screen, it makes me feel. There's feelings that you have as a tester, the manual tester, that really makes a difference there. So I think you can never take that away. um, when people discuss the QA wants to be a developer, and not everybody wants to be a developer, I think, there used to be a segregation of people that, you're a requirements based tester, a functional tester, versus someone who really understands the technical side. You've been in development and you've been here, and it used to be separate. And I think we have to rethink things now, where while you may not have to be able to write a full program or write code and be a hardcore developer in the background with your QA role or testing role, I think it does help you, and it does improve your skill set to understand how the code works. Because I see a lot of testers on my team that can identify the problem, um, and say there's a defect or an issue here, but they can also work with the developer hand in hand and pair with them to say, here's where I think you might need to look to find out where the problem exists, and really help them. And I see a lot of good relationships between developers and testers when they do that. Um, Others can help when the QAs are the bottleneck. I think that is one that, yeah, the old saying, anybody can do testing. Nobody ever says it straight out, but we have that feeling sometimes. I think once you've been a tester for a while and you understand the art and the craft of what we do as testers, you realize it's not very easy. It's not just, you can just go and test it. So I think, that's a discussion we don't want to have. And then when development increases, we talked through the years, through my many years of working both in development and testing. We used to do ratios, for every 3 test developers, we need 1 tester. For every 1 developer, we need 2 testers. Whatever that ratio was, I think it really depends now. And it probably depended then as well, but it really depends now on, what is the scope and the effort of the work that you're doing. And it really depends on the size and the complexity of that project, based on how many testers you need and what the scope is there. When we talk about environments, when we think about, and it's slow, sorry, questions that I see or that we hear out in the world of testing and in projects is, we need a production like environment, or it works in staging but it doesn't work in production, or when is the system going to be ready to test, or the last one is it's going to take too long to set this up, so let's just move it to production and test it there. So thinking about how do you respond to those 4 things, on the production like environment, I think the big thing that we need to think about is understanding your scale, especially if you're doing performance testing. And I talk with a lot of folks in performance that have said, it's really understanding that scale. Is it does it map correctly, where that when you do your testing on this smaller scaled version or a different version of the production environment, is that giving you a confidence, the right confidence that it's going to work in production the same way? On it works in staging but not production. I mean, I think, it doesn't really matter where it works. If it works on your machine, my machine, on the staging box, on the test box, but if it doesn't work in production, then we failed. And and the users will let you know that right away. Um, the system not being ready to test, I think we have a big opportunity in our hands to look at service virtualization, stubbing out APIs, and being able to build some things that will help us to start testing earlier, especially when certain components might not be ready. Because the earlier you can look at everything together, even if a piece of that is not fully ready, the better you can tell how things are going to work, integrated, and to really get further along in your testing. And then the last one here, it's going to take too long to set up. Let's just move to production. I would say don't let time drive your risk to quality. But if you have to, make sure that you quickly evaluate it in production. We hear a lot of people talking about shift right, and testing things in production, and I think we can do that. But you have to just understand what you're working with, and what your risks are to do that, and if you have a way to turn that on and off pretty quick if things were to not work when you do move to production. Automation, when I think about automation and some of the questions that I've seen, or the things that we hear, we need to automate 100%. Nobody's ever heard that, right? We do not need automation. I hear that, and I've heard that in some places. Or why do the automated tests fail? Why are they not working? And then the last one would be, why didn't the automation magically catch those weird bugs? I think the one thing that we need to think about with automation at 100% is 100% automation is just not reasonable. Now, you may be in a company where you may say, in my situation it is, but I just think it's not reasonable, and likely not needed. I think automation should fill the gaps and help you to run repeatable tests and regression tests. And I've seen people use automation for so many other things beyond just regression testing and automating some of the repetitive work. Seen people use it for building data and continuous integration within their release process. So there's a lot we can do with automation, but at the end of the day, you still need people, I believe, to test and to assess the system. The only answer to we do not need automation is you do. And it's needed. It used to be a good to have. Some companies would say, we might use automation, but I think it's needed in our day and time. We need automation, at least to some extent. And then why do automated tests fail? Well, because they're code, and code fails. And as testers, we know this more than anybody. And then on the last one, for magically, why didn't the automation magically catch the weird bugs? Is because, for us to depend on automation to be the silver bullet that really catches everything, it really depends on how they're designed. And someone has to write that and to build that automated script. And then that requires them to understand the full purpose of how the system is going to be used and how you're going to use that along the way. When we think about planning and estimation, one of the questions that I see, or the discussions that we see coming up a lot is, can you explain why your estimates are so long? Why is this going to take so long to do? And I know you feel the same thing I feel, because it's usually the only role within the team that gets asked, why is this going to take so long? Nobody asks, why is the planning taking so long? Why is the development taking so long? Usually it's, why is testing? And it's probably because, we're running out of time, and now we need to cut it short so we can still meet our planned time deliverables. I've had a lot of discussions around, what is the cost of testing. I've been in companies where they ask you, what is the value? Why do we need a test team? Why can't developers just do it themselves? Why do we need a full, fully staffed QA testing team to do this? And I think when you think about estimates and the planning and what you do from an estimation standpoint, it helps to have mind maps. Anybody that knows me is laughing right now as you hear this, because I'm going to say mind maps at least once. It's like bingo with me. But I do feel very strongly about mind maps and how that they help you to do the work that you do. And it also, to me, testers, we talk in different languages around test scenarios and plans and test summaries and scripts and steps and cases, and developers talk about the architectural design and the development speak, and product owners and managers talk about timelines. And so to get everybody together, to me, I feel like mind maps really kind of bridges that gap in and it's one language, and it really helps you to communicate scope. It's a very graphical way to show exactly what areas you're going to focus on and test. And and when people start asking the questions, why are these estimates so long? So here, look at my mind map. Let's walk through it if you'd like to see, what areas I feel need to be covered with this test. And it really it strengthens that discussion and really gives you an opportunity to show why you're doing what you do. Um, on the cost of testing and the value of testing, I think the one thing that is a tendency that we have a tendency to do is to say, if someone says, why do we need testing, or what value is testing, your intent is, like in a relationship, you're supposed to love me. You can't make somebody love you by saying you need to love me. Same thing with testing. You can't say, well, we're testers, we find defects, we find problems, we assess the system, we investigate the product, and because of that, you're supposed to respect us and love what we do and pay whatever it costs. I think what you have to do, if you're ever in that situation, and if you haven't been, you will be. If you get in that situation, don't talk about the cost of testing. Talk about the cost of not testing, and talk about the cost of that issue making it to production without being found and stopped. Because when I was working for a large retailer, and they were asking about that very question, and why do we need testing here? Why do we need this in this area? I said, well, imagine this defect that we just found. There was a very critical defect, makes it to production. And you've got clients, I mean, you've got customers who walk into your stores or shop online, and they see this and it doesn't work. And they say, I quit. And you think about the average cost that that customer is going to bring to you monthly or yearly. And then they tell 10 friends. And then all their friends go on social media and tell their friends. And eventually this exponentially gets to the point where you're losing a lot of money, opportunity within your company. So think of it about what is the cost of not testing? What is the cost if this makes it to production? Now we get around the question of, do you really need to test this? And that's, I think that's probably the most difficult one for us as testers, is because you feel second guessed. You feel like someone's asking you, do you really know how to do your job? And are you sure you know what you're doing? And you get questions. I get discussions around, well, the developer tested this during development, or you get the response of, well, the developer's way too busy to write unit tests. They've got to get the code done. We've got a timeline to meet. You get the question, why are you testing that? Or you get the statement, this is very straightforward. It's just, why would we test this? It's very straightforward. Or exploratory testing is not enough. Or test cases versus not test cases. That's a whole talk for another day. And usability bugs. They're not real bugs, right? You get into those. And so how do we respond to those things? And how do we respond to those situations when they happen? Well, I think the first thing we have to say is, the developer tested it during development. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. We'll take it from here and we'll proceed. The development is too busy to write unit tests. I think, the one thing that what you should see in that situation is, this is a very big opportunity for you to work together, to build that relationship, and to pair up with that developer and say, let me help you. Let me show you what I would do if I was going to unit test this. And see that as an opportunity to step in and be working together on unit testing. You'll find that as you continue to build that relationship with your teams, you'll have developers that are willing to come in and start working with you to help find root causes and to really help what you do on your end of the process as well. This is very straight. Oh, I see. Why are you testing that? Well, we're testing that because we know the user. And the one thing that I say, and Michael Bolton says it a lot, is, and I've heard him say it at least a couple of times, is really understand what the stakeholders are going to do with this product. Understand more than, how many requirements do we have and how many tests do we need to write against those requirements. Understand exactly how is the stakeholders going to use this. What do they want to do with this product? Get in their head, right? And understand how they want to do it. And then, regardless of what the team says to you, why are you testing that? Why are you doing that? You know that you're looking at the right area and you're doing the right thing for the product and for the company. This is very straightforward. When you hear this is very straightforward, I think, you say that's nice. That's going to make it really easy for me to test it then. And then exploratory is not enough. I think it is if you do it properly. And I think about, my team does context driven testing. We do a lot of exploratory testing. We use mind maps to plan out what we're doing. We don't necessarily have 10 steps in a script that we're following, but we do have scenarios. We do understand how to map out the whole product and these are the things that we're going to focus on when we do our testing. And then test cases versus no test cases. I think the big thing is, going on with what I was just saying, is you need to understand the scope. And it's not about the requirements as much as it is understanding the product, how it's going to be used, how the users are going to use it, and being able to think the way they think about what are their expectations for how this is going to be used for them. And usability, I think, is very critical. The statistics show that if a product doesn't work for you, then you're probably going to throw it away, especially on mobile apps. There's a lot of studies around millennials and how that they'll just trash a mobile app if it doesn't work for them, on the first try. I'm not a millennial by far, but I can tell you I will trash a mobile app if it doesn't work for me consistently, and I think being able to have a good product is more than just meeting the requirement. It's about the look of. You hear of people deleting apps because the app doesn't look pretty. That's ridiculous, but it's the world we live in, and you have to understand what your consumer and your customer and your stakeholders going to do with this, and be able to think the way they're going to think. That helps us as testers. And then execution time. This is the part where everybody's done, right? No matter how long it took to get to this point, now it's like, hurry up. Can you hurry up? We're done. Or are you done? Can we be done? And when that happens, you get into discussions like this. You'll hear discussions around, can we cut testing because our budget is overrun? We've gone over and now we need to cut testing a little bit. Can we do that? Or negotiating time. You get into a situation where you say, hey, look, I estimated it's going to take me 3 days to test this. You only give me 1 day. I still need 3 days. You have to have that discussion. And then if you're a parent, you know exactly what we're talking about when we say, are we done yet? Can we ship? Can we go ahead and ship that? If you take your kids on a trip somewhere in the car and they're in the back seat saying, are we there yet? Dad, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? You're going to hear that. You're going to hear that a lot as a tester, more than any other role, I believe. And you're going to have discussions around what is the least things that we can do. What is our minimum viable product? You'll hear MVP, right? And MVP will come out like crazy. Or here it is, it's ready, surprise. And you got to test this today. It's got to go out tonight. Or when you start raising issues or defects, you get the old, why did you raise this? That's not a problem. That's not even part of the scope of the requirement. Why would you raise that as a problem? And then the last one, which is kind of repetitive to the planning side, is can we throw more testers at this and get this done? So responses that I would say that you would want to give to those things. Can we cut testing? So because of the budget, yeah, we can do that. But your confidence may be low. And the other thing that I'll say, I think I said earlier, if you take one thing away, I think you need to take two things at least away from this. And that is testers need to think about confidence. In my role and what I do as a tester and our test team, it's really about confidence. And more than anything else, you ask a tester, when I interview people, I ask them, what is the role of testing, and what are you supposed to do as a tester? And it's not necessarily wrong, but some people will say to find defects. That's my role. We find defects. Defects is just an outcome of what we do as testers. It's not what we do, it's the outcome. What we do is investigate the product and understand the product and how the users and stakeholders are going to use it. But also, I feel that a lot of our metrics in my company are wrapped around confidence. Is my confidence high in this product? Is my confidence low, or is it medium? Do I feel confident in this function that it's going to work, or is my confidence really low? And I will tell you, if you tell me I have 2 minutes to test this application, I'm going to tell you right away my confidence is going to be low. But if you give me 3 months to test it and I can test it crazy from start to finish, I may tell you that, yeah, my confidence is growing as we go. And the more time I get with this application, the more confident I'm going to be. So I think talking in confidence is one of the best things you can do as a tester, and get your teams away from percent pass fail, percent complete, and really more thinking around what is my confidence in the product. Negotiating time for testing and really is thinking about the overall work effort, the overall SDLC. And what I mean by that is that when we think about timing, a lot of people will say, well, why do you need that long? I think we need to think about why do we need the whole, let's look at the whole project. How long is it going to take to develop? How long is it going to take to test? And let's work together on that. And then, are we done yet? Are we done yet? Just like as a parent has to do multiple times before they lose their mind in the car. Don't be like a parent and lose your mind as a tester, though. Just be patient and tell them, be patient as well. Excellence is in progress here. We're going to make a product that the stakeholders love. What's the least that we can do to ship? There's multiple answers. We can go a lot longer on that. But I think the big thing that we need to think about when we say what's the least that we can do is you really have to start looking at a risk-based plan if you do that. And think about, I've got these 3 features. Which one of these, if I have to not test one of them, which one of these can I sacrifice? And which one can I absolutely not? And do I need to cover? So think about those things. If you're forced to say, what is the least that we can do? Can you test this today? Yes, I can. And maybe tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I can test it any day. But you know what they're asking? They're wanting you to do it immediately. And sometimes you have to say, yes, I can do it. And I can tell you this is the size that I'm going to do this work. But the longer that span takes, the more confident I'm going to be in the product. And then, why did you raise this issue? The response there is because we know the user. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And then, can we throw more testers at it? Yes, maybe. But remember the mythical man month theory of, 9 women can't have a baby in 1 month. Adding more people doesn't always solve the problem. And you have to be able to address that and think about what things can I do in parallel, what testing can I do in parallel, or how linear or some of my tests to where I'm going to have to do these 3 in sequential order. So you have to think about that when someone's asking you that question, can we add more people? And then the last thing here, it's slow to move. The last thing on this topic is really thinking about quality. And, Jerry Weinberg, loved Jerry and all that he did when he was alive and the things that he taught us as testers, his books. But I loved his quote, quality is value to some person who matters. And what he meant by that is everybody can look at a picture and see a different story. And the same applies to quality, and if you want to be successful, you need to understand what your team sees and different people on your team see as quality. Now, these are examples. I'm not telling you that if you're a project manager that you only care about the budget and the requirements, or if you're the end user, you care if it fills the need. But you need to make these boxes in your organization, and you need to think about what is quality to me. Ask yourself that question. And then what is quality to my team? What is quality to the product owner? What is the quality to the stakeholder? Definitely. What does good look like to you? And really be able to understand that. Because when you understand what quality means to you, to the project manager, to the developer, and you understand that to that project manager, they may just want to deliver this product on time and under budget. And I mean, obviously, we know I've been a project manager, and I run a team of project managers, so they don't just think they're not, spinheads, and they think about only the time and the budget, but that's important to them, and that's what quality may mean to them. And if you understand that, then it helps you to work with teams when you understand that your definition of quality and what good is may not be theirs. But if you can speak at least a similar language or around quality, then you'll know that the team is going to work together very well. So next slide slowly. And yes, I did say earlier you don't hear about it again, but the drive-through is not always faster. It's not just the name of a really cool book. It's a theory. And it's a theory that made me write the book because I found that I sat in drive-through lines and I would realize that people would go in and get their food and come out, and I'm still in line and haven't even ordered yet. And it made me think, in work, in life, in so many situations, we sit in line because we know that's the way we've always done it. And we don't think about there is probably a faster, more efficient, better way than the way I've been doing it all these years. And so don't let it happen to you that what you do at work and what things you do day to day have to be the same every single day. I shared my book with someone in a drive-through at a restaurant once, and they said, well, it might not be faster, but it's definitely more convenient. And they were exactly right. But in our profession, we don't have the luxury of doing it just for convenience. Every minute counts in our IT organizations. So don't do it for convenience. Don't take the easy way, every day, or every time. And remember that sometimes there's a better, faster, and easier way to do it. So don't tie yourself to that same process every time. And the last thing, I'll leave you with this, and this has become I'm going to trademark this, I guess, someday. But this is the slide I put at every presentation, regardless of what I'm speaking. And that is for you. You have the potential to be remembered for all the things you're doing today. And you don't have to be Sheryl Sandberg, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, or Mark Zuckerberg to make a difference. You can change the world right where you are today, doing exactly what you're doing. So my question to you is, what are you doing to be great? And that, Joel, is the end of my presentation.
And we have about 2 minutes. First of all, great session. And
thank you.
I really like the fact that these are quite a lot of the conversations that I think many of us are having. And it's incredible to be able to get another perspective, a different perspective on how to look at it, not only what to answer, but where does it come from? It's very important to have that. And I think that you gave that point in a very, very good manner. So I really, we were not wrong. This was the session that we wanted. So I'm pretty happy that you were able to bring it here. There are a couple questions, but I think that they might be better honored on the Slack channel. They're more specific. They're less for the overall point here. Okay. I want to ask you something here. The approach is changing, and I'm going to be speaking about this in another session tomorrow. Do you think that we could be doing a better job switching the conversation over, additionally, in a more focused way, even to value, trying to frame it on value to the organization, like bottom line value? Because you were saying, meaning, I'm going to be talking about confidence, and if you ask me to lower, to not test something, I will tell you, okay, tell me which of the 3 features can I sacrifice, meaning which of them will you be able to support having bugs in there? Do you think that is one of the biggest issues, that we don't feel comfortable speaking bottom line value when we talk with our stakeholders, that is what they care about, at least many of them?
Yeah, I think when you do have those discussions around what does quality mean to you with other people on the team, and you realize it's not anywhere near what you think quality should be from your perspective, I think you do have to start helping teams. Your definition of quality may be different than mine, but at the end of the day, we do have to agree that value is very important. and to our stakeholders. I think that's a great point, Joe. We live in a world where people can buy another product. You know, Pepsi and Coke used to be the only thing that had things in common, but now, you know, I can buy your product or I can buy somebody else's product that looks very similar to your product. You know, there's competitors, and so to stay competitive, we have to have that value, and to be able to, you know, to compete and to continue to deliver to our clients and our stakeholders. So I think value is a big deal, and you need to be an advocate for that. I believe, as a tester.
And I totally agree. And I think that the point that you're bringing on the fact that we don't have captured customers and that user loyalty is relatively non-existent for because of the ecosystem that we're working. It's a good wake-up call to all of us that no one can take quality for granted anymore, and that quality is not lack of bugs. Quality is what you said, that Jerry was saying, it's something that is valuable for a stakeholder, for someone who actually matters. So,
Yes.
Mike, once again, I really
They have to do
appreciate
one. I
having
have
you
to do
aboard.
one real plug for you, Joe, here before I
Go,
go.
go.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. But I'm going to tell everybody, if you haven't seen PractiTest, and they did not pay me to do this, if you haven't seen
Gee,
PractiTest's tool, I'm getting ready to install it in my organization this week, and I'm so excited to get it. I know it's going to make a difference, and if you haven't seen their tool, you definitely should try it out. So that's my free
okay.
plug for you, Joe.
So thanks for that as well.